And we are back to what WCPT does best. We are talking politics and races, and we are joined by Kina Collins. Welcome, Kina.
Oh, my gosh. Thank you, Joan. Joan, you're my first radio interview since I announced.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you.
What she's talking about is Kina Collins has announced that she's going to make a run for the congressional seat in Illinois' 7th District. That is the district where Danny Davis is currently the congressperson. Okay. Tell the listeners about you. Who are you? Where did you come from?
Where did I emerge
Where
from,
did you emerge?
So I am a native of the Austin community. So I was born and raised in Illinois 7th Congressional District. My roots run extremely deep. Done a ton of national work around gun violence prevention, criminal justice reform, and now currently through healthcare advocacy. And as I said, I grew up in the district. I'm third generation Chicagoan. My grandparents were moved to Austin in the 1970s in that second great wave of Black folks from the South who came to the North for opportunities, and raised all these Chicagoans who are me and my big family of sisters and brothers. So
How many sisters and brothers do you have?
I have 6 brothers and sisters. So there's 7 of us in total. I'm number 6 in line.
The baby.
I'm
babyish.
Yep, I'm second to the baby. Yeah, Takira. She always has to beat me out.
So does your family still all live in the area?
Yeah. So my parents, one of my sisters, and of course my nieces and nephews still live in the Austin neighborhood as well. As also do I.
Now, you talked about some of your community activist experience, but you've worked on political campaigns too. Talk about that.
Yeah, so I've worked on mayoral campaigns. I've worked on aldermanic campaigns. This past municipal election, I started a community organization called Brand New Council. And essentially it was to help progressive candidates who were running for open seats against incumbents to build a supportive network. And we got some pretty good big wins. They got big wins.
Well, who?
Maria Haddon was who we endorsed, Andre Vasquez, Daniel Esposito. So, and then we just built a really great network out of people who were all across different wards, who were first-time candidates and who competed on a high level.
Now, you also worked for Samina Mustafa.
Yes, I worked for Samina Mustafa. Yeah, Samina, was probably the first candidate that I worked for who really, walked it like she talked it, right? Mm-hmm. She leaned into voters.
She was running for Congress, wasn't she?
She was running for Illinois 5th against Mike Quigley. Congressman Mike Quigley. And she just kind of opened me up and exposed me to what true progressivism was when we're talking in the political sphere. As an organizer and activist, we see that lens. I think so many people are unplugged and disengaged with politics because they don't see the real thing, and Samina was the real thing. Yeah.
Now, before that, you had a somewhat difficult experience working with J.B. Pritzker.
Yeah.
Talk about that. First of all, when did you start to work with the Pritzker people?
Yeah, so that was last midterm. After the disparaging comments that came out through the wiretaps, right? I, felt that it was more of a question of my integrity and morality, and did it align with me? And the answer was no. And so I left.
Talk specifically for our listeners who don't remember about what you're referencing.
Well, it was a huge story. There was just a wiretap that came out, and him saying what I believe were racially insensitive comments.
It was a recording of a phone call, yeah.
Yes. And, I moved on to a progressive candidate who was Samina Mustafa, who was running on the national stage, and met so many great people in Illinois 5. And so I don't regret the decision. Mm-hmm. He's the new governor. We move on, and, we do better, right? Everyone deserves second chances.
Talk about Illinois 7. Who are the people who make up Illinois 7? Yeah,
Illinois 7th is one of the most diverse districts in Illinois. It consists of portions of the west side of Chicago. It includes places like the financial district in the Loop. And it goes far south, and places like Inglewood and back of the yards. And then it stretches out to the western suburbs and places like Westchester, Oak Park, River Forest, Bellwood, Maywood. So it is not just racially and ethnically diverse, but it is economically diverse, right? And like I said, my roots run extremely deep in the districts.
Tell me why you want to challenge Danny Davis.
I think that we need to have a serious conversation in the Democratic Party about accountability and as far as creating a pathway to success of elevating new leaders. And I think that the challenges that we're facing are not new issues when we talk about gun violence or livable wages or workers' rights or women's rights, right? These are all intergenerational fights. But all of the folks that I'm talking to in the Illinois 7th are looking for new ways to approach solutions to fix those issues.
Well, pick one of those issues and talk about how Danny's approach and your approach differ.
Well, for me as a healthcare advocate, I'm looking at this a lot through an equity lens of healthcare in particular. When we talk about reducing gun violence, that is a public health issue. When we talk about nutritional options or fresh produce in our community, that's a nutritional health issue. When we talk about lead in the water or toxins in the air, that's a health issue. And growing up in Austin, the statistics show that I have 15 years less to live than someone who lives 10 minutes west of me in Oak Park. Right. So for me, I think that the way that we would lead on some of these issues would be extremely different.
Okay, but give me specifics. What is he doing that you don't like on these issues or that you don't think is enough?
Well, I essentially believe that all the voices are not necessarily being brought to the table. And once again, like I said before, these are intergenerational fights, right? That'll take a very long time. And some of them will not. We know, like, for example, the environmental issue, there's a 12-year gap to get these things done. And so we want to move forward and be forward looking and remove stagnant energy around that and really mobilize the district on some of these issues.
Okay, I'm not sure if this is what you mean, but it kind of sounds like what you're saying is, he's the old guard and it's time for the new guard to take over.
I wouldn't necessarily say just older, because I think when people hear the word older, they just think of age, right? New leadership can be fresh faces to me. Right. And I think that there are a lot of older individuals in the 7th Congressional District who would agree as well that they would want some of those fresh ideas and fresh faces elevating new solutions.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break. If you have a question for Kina Collins, who is running for the congressional seat in the Illinois 7th District, where Danny Davis is currently the congressperson, if you have a question for her, give us a call, 773-763-9278, 773-763-9278. We will be back after a short break.
Chicago, start your Sunday mornings off with me, Brandon Johnson, the host of Sunday Mornings from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. Each week, we will dive into the important political issues of the day, addressing economic, racial, and social injustices, and offering a clear vision to confront these challenges. Tune in to Sunday Mornings, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. with me, Brandon Johnson, on WCPT 820 a.m., Chicago's Progressive Talk, where the facts matter.
Would you like to learn how money's really made in the financial markets and how investing in them could be a path to financial freedom? Online Trading Academy in Lombard has a dream team of instructors. They're professional floor traders, market makers, investors, and portfolio managers with a combined 1,099 years of trading experience. They're ready to help you learn the skills of investing and trading, skills that can generate monthly cash flow for your family. Join thousands of people who've discovered a path that allowed them to reinvent themselves and take control of their finances. Online Trading Academy has been in business for 21 years and has a 95% student satisfaction rating. That's what it has, a student satisfaction rating. Sign up for your free class, 888-397-RSVP. That's 888-397-RSVP. And if you call right now, they'll send you home with their Professionals Insider Kit. It's loaded with exclusive investing courses and some of their best lessons from the pros. This is a limited opportunity, and seats go quickly. So call 888-397-RSVP. That's 888-397-7787, or visit them online at otaclass.com.
Today, business happens here, and virtually anywhere. Because today, innovative companies are reinventing the way business happens, and they need people who can keep up. with the expertise and technology to get packages to over 150 million delivery points. So, who can help you deliver the future of commerce? The United States Postal Service. See why we deliver more e-commerce packages to homes than anyone at USPS.com/future.
Thinking about life insurance? What if you could make one free phone call and learn your best price from nearly a dozen highly rated, price competitive companies? Well, that's exactly what happens when you call SelectQuote Life. For example, George is 40. He was getting sky-high quotes from other companies because he takes meds to control his blood pressure. But when I shopped around, I found him a 10-year, $500,000 policy for under $25 a month. I'm SelectQuote agent Dan Savino. And believe me, if SelectQuote isn't shopping for your life insurance, you're probably paying too much.
For your free quote, call 800-613-7416. That's 800-613-7416. 800-613-7416. Or go to SelectQuote.com. Since 1985, we shop, you save.
Get full details on the example policy at SelectQuote.com/commercials. Or price could vary depending on your health, issuing company, and other factors. Not available in all states.
Because facts matter. You are listening to WCPT 820.
For our listeners in Illinois' 7th District, you are going to be having a choice on the ballot coming up. In the 7th District, Kina Collins has decided to throw her hat in the ring against long-term Congressman Danny Davis. And we were talking about some of the issues. Now, you have been an activist in the area of gun violence, but isn't that really more of a city of Chicago kind of thing to worry about as opposed to a congressional thing?
I mean, I think a lot of people would, but if you look at what is happening in Washington, D.C. currently, specifically in the Department of Education, for years, gun violence prevention activists were trying to push to get federal funding for research through the Center for Disease Control, was blocked through the Dickey Amendment, and now we see Betsy DeVos handing federal dollars over for teachers to get firearms, right?
Yeah.
So this is very much a federal issue, and it's something that has to be solved comprehensively and nationally. We can have great gun laws here in the state of Illinois, but as we know, a lot of the guns that get trafficked in are in neighboring states, right? So this is something that I definitely think needs to be comprehensive, and we need to talk about it on the national level and push.
Okay. What's one specific piece of legislation or stance of Danny Davis's that you really don't care for or completely disagree with?
Well, I don't think that it's necessarily that we disagree on a ton of issues. Our district is a true blue district, and we have had elected officials who have voted in that way. So it's not necessarily about the voting. My issue is, are we mobilizing? Are we activating? Are we leading? Right? And I think the DCCC and the Democratic Party has done this great speech about keeping the power of the incumbent majority in and the power of seniority. But majority and seniority means nothing without leadership. And we have a new generation of people who are rising up and who are clamoring to talk about environmental justice, to organize around gun violence prevention and women and girls' rights and things like that. But we're not activating them.
Well, you mentioned the DCCC. The DCCC is an organization that supports incumbents in their efforts to get reelected. And it's kind of made some news itself in the last year or so because in its effort to protect incumbents, there have been some pretty harsh measures enacted. By the way, Illinois congressional person Sherry Bustos is nominally the head of the DCCC. And to the point where because I was talking about this with Marie Newman, who's running in Illinois District 3 against Dan Lipinski. Not only is the Democratic Party not going to give any money to anybody who wants to challenge an incumbent, they are going to ban any vendors who work with a challenger for life. So if somebody wants to be Kina Collins' political consultant,
Yep.
that means that they will never be hired by the DCCC to work for the Democratic Party ever again.
Luckily, I have consultants who have no problem with being banned by the DCCC. I have a great team that we put together, and that's one of the pride and joys of my campaign is that we're building a very solid infrastructure, grassroots campaign powered by the people. But to that point, we are not doing anything but hindering ourselves as a Democratic Party by allowing that to happen. And, you know, just speaking about the DCCC and Sherry Busso, she's actually hosting a fundraiser for Dan Lipinski in the throes of this Roe v. Wade fight as we see states unconstitutionally banning abortion rights. So this is not just a question about politics or our stance on the issues. This is a question about morality and character. And what are we going to put and inject back into Washington, D.C. because we've lost our way?
Most people I know who decide to run for office, before they throw their hat in the ring, they hire somebody to, do a poll, talk to people and sort of take the temperature, if you will, of the district. And have you done that? And what did it tell you?
So really a lot of what I've done since we are in the introduction stage of the campaign is done a lot of community focus groups, done a lot of one-on-one with community stakeholders. And people are really amped up and they're excited, right? I don't think we've ever really had a under 30-year-old run in Illinois 7th against someone like Danny K. Davis, who has a long distinguished career, right? Because it's just kind of taught to you that, you wait your line in turn, wait your turn in line and you're skipping the line when you don't do that. And I say to that, we are experienced individuals in our communities, and I think voters are smart enough to know in a very expert way what they need and what they want in their communities.
Well, you make a good point, though, about that whole idea of people coming to you and saying, you should wait till Danny Davis is ready to retire. Mm-hmm. You should right now be supporting him and, getting him, he can get to know you so that he can support you at that time. And isn't it possible that there'll be a backlash of people who say, this young woman, this young whippersnapper, who does she think she is? Telling Danny Davis it's time to hit the road. Do you worry about a voter backlash?
Absolutely not. The conversations that I've had with constituents in the district is that change cannot wait. And that if we are seriously going to be complaining about these issues, one of the, big lines that I heard from people when, I participated in organizing around community police relationships when things like that occurred in the community was, why don't you guys get out of the street and do something actively in your community? Well, this municipal election, those same people were on the ballot. Right? Those same people were now on the ballot. And so it's not enough for us to make democracy a sideline sport. We have to get in the game. And I think that people are encouraging others who represent different portions of our district to run.
I've talked to young people who are clearly politically active, young people who are running for office, young people who have ideas of how they want government to run. So I will tell you, I was shocked in the last two elections in this area at how those young people seemingly didn't go to the ballot box. Mm-hmm. I mean, I was watching election night, and particularly the lowest turnout was the 18 to 24 and the, I forget what the next
municipals,
one was.
right?
For the, the last
midterms.
two Chicago, not the midterms, the last two Chicago area elections. 18 to 24 was the lowest turnout, and the next age group up was the second lowest. Mm-hmm. So you, you're that demographic, and you obviously care enough to run for office. How do you get people in your demographic to actually show up and vote?
Yeah, I think that we have to go places where traditionally get out the vote campaigns and strategy teams have not thought to go.
Like where?
Right. So in my community in Austin, there's not a huge push. We don't see many voter registration drives in Inglewood, in back of the yards, and areas where traditionally, if you look at the exit polling, strategists will say, well, they don't really come to the ballot box. Right.
Well, that's kind of apples and oranges, though, because there's the issue of registration. But then because the numbers I was looking about was registered voters.
So. And it's also an issue of, and that's a really good point, it's also an issue of local elections as well. We know that we want to get people civically engaged all across the board. National elections tend to get more appeal, which is why we've seen the uptick in young people and millennials in the midterms voting and getting out the vote, because they've been politically agitated and they're looking at the national issues. But I definitely agree with you. It's something that we need to work on the local level.
Well, it's something that if I knew what to do, I would do it for the upcoming election. But so when I get people in here, I'm asking them, what do you think? What do you think would motivate, youthful voters? I mean, I remember, I don't know how many years old it is now, but remember the effort years ago, Rock the Vote? And it was supposed to be on all the MTV and all those, and it was supposed to be young, cool people telling other young, cool people to get out and vote. And we need some kind of new kind of rock the vote effort.
I also think that traditionally, young people have not had people who look like them running for office, right? So I think that they feel isolated a lot of the issues, or think that these are not issues that concern them. But when we speak about these issues and you really dig deep, particularly in these local elections, it's super important to be active and to participate. But I know that in my area, I haven't had many young women of color, running for office either. So
what's your family think about this? What have they said to you?
I don't think anybody was surprised.
Really?
My mom, I was born on International Women's Day. So I was born on March 8th. And she said one birthday I had, she said, me and your dad always knew you'd be in politics or, an advocate for something. And I'm like, why? Because I was a special child. She's like, no, because once we taught you how to talk, we couldn't get you to shut up. So we knew you would go into it. So, my family has always encouraged me to use my voice. And that if I'm going to complain about something, then I better have a solution for whatever I'm complaining about, and to actively get involved. And so I don't think that they were shocked. They're extremely supportive.
Really? And your siblings too?
Yeah, they're like, okay, what do we have to do? You're always dragging us along for these community projects. What do we have to do? So they're excited, though. They're really excited.
So how are you reaching out to people? You mentioned that you sometimes appear before community groups. What else are you doing in the district?
Yeah, so we are, obviously we're doing our media, everybody who's inviting us, but also our website just went live. My campaign website just went live.
And what is that?
It's Kina for Congress.
Kina.
Yep, FOR Congress, CONGRESS.com. And folks have been signing up to volunteer. Already. We've gotten a really great response early on. And then, yes, following up with any community meetings and different events that we'll be participating in.
If people want to volunteer on your campaign, what are the kinds of things you're going to ask them to do?
Yeah, so we're going to ask folks to phone bank. We're going to ask people to canvass and door knock. Of course, we'll be training people when petition season comes around, right? That's an extremely important portion to get on the ballot. And then also, to help with fundraising, et cetera.
You're of the same demographic as Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. What do you think about the Green New Deal? I mean, it's sort of a dead issue at this point in time, but what do you think of it as an idea?
Well, what I think is that what the Congresswoman has done a really great job at is highlighting and emphasizing and spotlighting these issues that are important as far as our sustainability, right? And not just from an environmental standpoint, which that is the core of why we should be paying attention to this, but fiscally, it is responsible and smart to be investing in clean jobs and clean energy. And we are behind other developed countries on some of these issues. So I think that far more voices need to be brought to the table. I think we do need to continue to open those conversations with coal miners and farmers and hear their perspectives. And I think it's headed in the right direction.
If you would like to join our conversation, because I'm going to ask Kina to stick around for another segment. If you would like to join our conversation, remember the number is 773-763-9278. Again, for those of us who are numerically challenged, it's 773-763 WCPT 773-763-9278. I'm talking with Kina Collins. She has been a community activist. She spent some time working with the Pritzkers. She spent some time working on the campaign that Samina Mustafa ran for Congress when she ran against Mike Quigley. She has been a community activist, active in particularly the area of gun violence and prevention, as well as a healthcare advocate. Would you say that's fair?
That's fair.
Okay, well, we're getting some calls, but you know what? Before we go to the calls, let's take a real quick break, and we will be back with more with Kina after this.
At Principal, we get it. You have big plans for your money, but sometimes life has something else in mind. There are twists and turns you never see coming. Twists like promotions and job transfers, and turns like new family members and rising college tuitions. Life doesn't always go according to plan. We can help you plan for that. Principal, investments, retirement, insurance.
Sponsored by member companies of Principal, Des Moines, Iowa, Principal National Life and Principal Life Insurance Company, Principal Global Investors. Securities offered by Principal Securities, Inc., member SIPC.
I had some water damage from the spring rains in my basement. I needed the basement put back together after we fixed the problem. Plus, I also needed some handyman-type projects done. They were able to do both.
We are talking today with mega customer Audrey Jans of Mount Prospect.
I had them do a front door, storm door put in, light fixture, ceiling fan in my sunroom. The lights changed out under my eaves. Plus, I had the eaves fixed because the birds kept on making nests in there. Put in new gutter guards. They did quite a bit, and then they went back down to the basement, finished painting, putting in new baseboard, and then they put the whole basement back together, the furniture back, and all the electronics connected. Really did a nice job. They were great. My dog liked them.
One mega call does it all.
847-658-8989. 847-658-8989.
Megapros.com.
One mega call does it all.
Today, business happens here, and virtually anywhere. Because today, innovative companies are reinventing the way business happens, and they need people who can keep up with the expertise and technology to get packages to over 150 million delivery points. So, who can help you deliver the future of commerce? The United States Postal Service. See why we deliver more e-commerce packages to homes than anyone at USPS.com/future.
Kronos, providing HR solutions for the modern workforce and the people who support them. Learn more at kronos.com/HR swagger.
AP Radio News. I'm Ed Donahue. Amid a trade war with China, President Trump is moving to ease tensions with allies. The AP's Sagar Magani is at the White House.
The president's lifting import taxes on Canadian and Mexican steel and aluminum, clearing the way for approval of a trade pact between the three nations. He slapped on the tariffs last year in the name of national security, and Canada had resisted approving the deal while they were in place.
They were hurting Canadian consumers, Canadian workers, and American workers and American consumers.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau in Ontario shortly before President Trump spoke here in Washington, where he did not address the tariffs, but pushed Congress to approve the deal.
A fantastic deal for our country.
The White House says he's now holding off on deciding whether to put tariffs on foreign vehicles, which would have a big impact on Europe and Japan. Sagar Magani at the White House.
Lawmakers in Missouri passed a bill to ban abortions in the state after 8 weeks of pregnancy. State Rep Carrie Engel is a Democrat.
There's really no words to describe it. It feels like we're failing the state of Missouri.
The governor in Missouri is expected to sign that bill. In Louisiana, Democratic Governor John Bel Edwards is ready to sign legislation that would ban abortion in his state as early as 6 weeks of pregnancy. When the bill reaches his desk, the bill is awaiting one final vote in the state House. President Trump is expected to veto a bill if it reaches his desk that passed in the House that would extend civil rights protections to LGBT people by prohibiting discrimination based on sexual orientation or gender identity. It was opposed by Republicans, including Georgia's Doug Collins.
And this bill is just not a good attempt. It's an imperfect step toward making something that others want to be right, but in the end runs a real risk of causing others harm at the same time.
Near Washington today, a former CIA officer, Kevin Mallory, has been sentenced to 20 years in prison after a jury convicted him of spying for China. This is AP Radio News. The president of Ohio State University, Michael Drake, cites consistent institutional failure and is vowing to do something about a doctor accused of sex abuse. A report released today says former team doctor Richard Strauss sexually abused at least 177 male students. The AP's Andrew Welch-Huggins reports Strauss killed himself in 2005.
The report says that university leaders were aware of allegations against Strauss in the 1990s and that attempts were made to remove him from contact with students. However, he was kept on at the university, and when he left, he was made an emeritus professor.
22 coaches told investigators they had heard rumors or complaints about the doctor. Prosecutors say a pregnant Chicago teenager who was killed and whose baby was cut from her womb was strangled while she was shown a photo album of the late son and brother of her attackers. Prosecutors want to keep the attackers locked up. Ed Donahue, AP Radio News.
This is 8:20 a.m. WCPT Willow Springs and streaming worldwide at WCPT820.com. We are Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter. Now, your WCPT 820 Chicago traffic update.
Accidents near West Side, Roosevelt at Wood, South Side, 81st at Carpenter, Summit, Harlem, south of 54th, Warrenville, Butterfield at Route 59, Hanover Park, Barrington Road at Tanglewood, and Des Plaines, River Road at Algonquin Road. Dan Ryan, solid inbound, 31st to Burn Interchange, 95th to downtown, 38 minutes. Up on 29, it's stop and go between 47th and Chicago Skyway. I-57 slow outbound from the Dan Ryan to 103rd. Lakeshore Drive, southbound, backed up after North Avenue to Chicago Avenue. Northbound is stop go from the Stevenson to Jackson Ave, from Wacker to Chicago Avenue. Tri-State Tollway, stop and go southbound from Dempster to the Bensonville Bridge. Also I-80 to 8094. Northbound's backed up from the Reagan to Lawrence. That's traffic. I'm Tom Beck.
Bill Press digs deep into all of the goings-on in Washington. Let Bill bring you up to date on everything you missed overnight. Weekdays at 6 a.m. on WCPT 820, Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter. WCPT 820, Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter.
Joan Esposito, live.
Celebrating our power to bring about change.
Local.
Everybody has to work together.
And progressive.
I think you get the idea.
On WCPT 820.
Hi, I'm talking to Kina Collins. She is going to be running against Danny Davis for the congressional seat in Illinois' 7th District. And she has a Twitter handle. If you want to start following her on Twitter, it's at KINA4, the number 4, Congress. Kina for Congress with the number 4. And we were talking in the break, and you were talking about House Bill 5548. Explain what that is and what role you played in it.
Yeah, House Bill 5544 was the Illinois. It's fine. It's okay.
Dyslexic.
It's the Illinois Council on Women and Girls Act, and essentially Donald Trump, what he did was he got rid of an Obama-era policy, which was the White House Council on Women and Girls, which was chaired by Tina Chin, Valerie Jarrett, Mrs. Obama, and this was what gave us federal protection. Basically, they would convene with federal agencies around any issues that impacted women and girls. So he got rid of it. I came back to Chicago. I built a coalition out, helped co-author some legislation, and I brought it back on the state level, but as a law instead of a commission or an executive order. And it was passed in a bipartisan effort. I visited 68 counties out of 100 in the state, doing community meetings, meeting with women in Cahokia and Galena and all over the state. And
what's the law called, and what exactly does it do?
Yep. It's the Illinois Council on Women and Girls Act. And what it does is it creates an advisory council for the governor's office and state legislators on any policy that directly impacts women and girls. or state funding that impacts women and girls in the state of Illinois.
And how are the members of this advisory council chosen?
Yeah, so it was an appointment process like they do with other councils. The governor appointed people, the House minority leader and majority leader got picks, and then the Senate majority and minority leaders got picks for the appointees, 21 appointees.
And this went through under Bruce Rauner, is that correct?
Yeah, it actually went through under Bruce Rauner. And let me tell you, the bill was extremely progressive. It required that it be racially proportionate to the state. It required that we, even though it was a nonpartisan council, that we would expand the access to reproductive health care and rights and education. And it required that transgendered women who so very well choose to identify as such get to sit on the council. And we twisted his arm and built a really strong coalition, and he signed it into law.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, we've got a question if you want to throw your headphones on so you can hear them when I take them. Hi, Jay. You have a question for Kina?
Yes, I have a more of a question and a statement.
Okie dokie.
First of all, congratulations for having the courage to run against Danny Davis. I think it's probably needed.
Thank you so much.
And I believe you'll win based on what I'm hearing.
Thank you.
My question, and me saying that before I get to my question, my question is going to be: who's your mentor? Because I think every person should have one.
Oh man.
Secondly, I think with the Danny Davises and the Bobby Rushes, I just believe that when you stay in politics so long, you have onus to other people that don't necessarily benefit your constituency, and that's where. Well, I think it's good that you're running. And secondly, why do you think Danny Davis backed Bill Daley over Tony Preckwinkle and...
Okay. Thank you, Jay. Appreciate that. Okay, we've got two questions here. Why do you think Danny Davis backed Tony Preckwinkle? Do you have any insight into that?
You know, I think that everybody comes to those decisions independently. I respect in whichever way he came to that decision. Tony Preckwinkle is somebody who's extremely qualified, also distinguished. So that was an independent decision he came to. I'm not sure why.
Okay. And the other question was, who mentored you?
So I would say it's not one person, right? It's a plethora of people. It's the family values that I was instilled on. I come from a union household, which essentially means both my parents are a part of unions, working class people, taught me the importance of integrity, hard work, and community. And I would say teachers and people who I met throughout my life, but really my family, was the guiding force around a lot of the decisions that I've made.
What unions did they belong to?
So my father is a part of Teamster, and my mom's has changed because she's a city crossing guard, and she also works as a certified nursing assistant. So her union's changed, but my dad has been with Teamster for over 25 years.
So when are you going to get out there and start knocking on doors?
So as I said, we're building out the infrastructure, right? My hard launch or announcement that will be coming, which will be a launch party, will be June 1st. Please follow the social media to get all of the information for that. Kina for Congress on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram. And then we'll bring the volunteers in and we'll do some community canvassing. So we're looking in the summer months.
Okay.
Yeah.
And in all of those addresses, is the number 4 is a number, right?
Correct.
So
except for on Facebook, it's 4, F-O-R.
Okay, so Kina, F-O-R?
Congress.
Okay.
Yep.
And then, but Instagram and Twitter it's
the
K-I-N-A number 4, Congress.
Yep.
Okay. So do you plan to have... do you have space? I mean, do you have a campaign office?
Yes.
Or is that part of what you're going to roll out this summer?
Yeah, so we roll all of that out, right? Essentially, when you launch, or announce that you're going to be running, you want to make sure that your team's in order, that, your fundraising is going well, that you are still having those pertinent conversations with community stakeholders, because having an office and everything is great, but you still need to be connected to the community and know where you're going. So that'll come later down the line. Yep.
What endorsements would you love to get? What one endorsement would just put you over the moon?
The community's endorsement, the electorate's endorsement, right? Because at the end of the day, that is who I will be serving. So organizationally, it's great to work and partner with great organizations, but we need to, put the power back into the people and what they really need and what they really want.
As you've been talking to people in your neighborhood, what is one concern that keeps coming up over and over again?
I would definitely say criminal justice reform. Housing affordability. In our district in particular, 44% of children under the age of 18 are living under the poverty line. 25% of adults are. Right. So this is like a huge issue. We need to decriminalize poverty. How
would you go about doing that?
So there's a number of ways. Number one, I'm very interested in juvenile justice reform. We need to federally raise the age of how we prosecute children, right? Right now, state by states do it how they see fit. I think we need to end the cash bail bond system. I also think that we need to look at ways that specifically around treatment for drug addiction. We need to be investing in preventative measures and treatment and not in punitive measures and basically incarceration. In the end, that costs taxpayers far more. So for me, that is a huge issue, particularly in the most marginalized portions of our district.
We're at the end of our time. What's one thing you want to leave? What's one thought you want to leave our listeners with, Kina?
Yeah, please follow me on social media. We just launched a campaign, a lot of excitement, a lot of energy around the campaign. That's Kina for Congress. And you can visit my website at kinaforcongress.com and check out my value statement on the issues. And please, everybody get registered to vote. This is going to be a huge election, whatever the outcome. And we are extremely confident in my camp. So check me out.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much for coming here.
Thank you so much, Joan.
Kina Collins, and we will be back with some of the folks from Illinois, IL9, Illinois District 9, and they have recently looked into immigration at our southern border, and they're going to have a program in a couple of days where they're going to talk about that and some other things. And we're going to talk to two representatives